Day by day, dear Lord, of these three things I pray. To see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, follow thee more nearly, day by day. Amen. Dear friends, this is the song that came to me this week. It's one that I sang nearly every day from the time I was 13 until I graduated from high school. I went to an Episcopal school in Memphis, Tennessee, and we were required to go to chapel each and every day of the week. And following that time in the chapel in the big sanctuary, we would engage in that song with the invitation to make use of the kneelers as they would creak open there in the church. I didn't realize it then, but going back to that foundation of prayer, one that required me physically and interiorly to get down on my knees in the midst of the vigorous studies that we were doing, the trials of adolescence, and everything that it could impinge upon a young person in that space, to kneel, the invitation to be present to the divine, and to know that we were praying all together. I was reminded of that this week when I got my weekly dose of encouragement. I never know where it's going to come from, but this came as I visited Sunrise Senior Facility here in Columbia. This is a place that I had been before. Perhaps you have been there. I was going to see Wes Moores of our congregation. So often in the past, I'd gone to see Wayne Ivester too, who lived just down the hall. And we can thank longtime member Wayne Ivester, I believe, for Wes Moore's presence in our community, for he had reached out in love and invited him here. And I was reminded of this sense of a day-by-day walk with God because I got to talking with Wes. And because Wayne died a couple of weeks ago now, it was that delightful space of reminiscence when you recall the beauty that someone passes on to you that you want to carry forward after they've died. And Wes so very much looked forward and looked up to Wayne. For Wayne was the elder statesman, having been at Sunrise for quite some time. He knew the lay of the land. He knew the ropes of the building. And he led something every Tuesday. As Wes emphasized, I knew that Wayne led a prayer meeting every week. But Wes was so insistent that come rain or hell, high water, that prayer meeting was going to happen up in the library. In the library, 10:30 every Tuesday. And everybody knew it. In the library, 10:30 every Tuesday, come and be a part of prayer. He even had a prayer box that is set up in the lobby where people from the staff to the residents to anyone visiting could put a prayer request in the box, and thereby it could be lifted up on Tuesday at 10:30 in the library. So only being in the hospital would keep Wayne from having that practice. And although it wasn't always well attended, I have a sense that it was something like his day-by-day prayer, where it reminded him of the humility of being with the Spirit and the power of praying together. But there's something to praying alone, which we do, something we can do in the privacy of our own space. But when we take it public, and we choose to do it together, it increases our sense of awareness of the divine that is in our midst. And so it was that regular, weekly occurrence that Wes responded to. It was that invitation from the elder statesman Wayne that brought that such meaning. And Wes talked particularly of the instance of about 2 years ago when Wayne's grandson, Jack, was in a very, very critical motorcycle accident down in Jackson, Mississippi. And so, yes, that prayer meeting at 10:30 in the library every Tuesday was going to happen. And I think the flavor and tenor of it changed when it became so clear that the chief concern on Wayne's heart from day to day and week to week was his grandson. And so his friends there in that community provided him the prayerful space in community to lift up Jack and to speak about how proud he was and how very much Jack was hanging in and holding on and getting through surgeries and making it. A young man who was to be a senior in college, how this grandfather, states away, could join his heart and send on his deep encouragement to Jack and have witnesses bearing to it into his community. Friends, this is a kind of deep encouragement that we find biblically here as the elder statesman Paul is writing from an upper room far away from his spiritual children and grandchildren. It is a deep love that he holds for them, and it is a deep distress that he worries occupies their minds as they try and figure out how to be community and how to come to wellness and health together. He had known them before. We know of 1 Corinthians, and we believe that 2 Corinthians is actually his fourth or so writing. He was in regular communication with them, but there was no Zoom. There was no FaceTime. There was no immediate sense of being able to communicate. All that he had was the posture of being on his knees, or even if he couldn't creak down because his knees were getting tired, amen, for some of us, it is a posture in the heart when you give yourself over day by day to something that is greater than you are, and some expectation that there is divine presence that comes when we join our hearts together in Christian love. Amen. It was then that Paul was writing, and I'm guessing that even there were grumblings and there were other apostles who were coming in, that Paul's word meant something because he was the founder of that community. He was the elder in their midst. And I'm guessing that it was particularly those who were going through their own trials in that Corinthian community who could hear what it was he had to say. But you know what he said? Yes, you have those super apostles out there that are giving you the flashy words and producing a lot of strength. But if we think to the journey of Jesus, it is ongoingly a Jesus who meets us in our suffering. And if we, as we are called to meet other people in their suffering, it is then that we are living out the love of Jesus. So yes, I have creaky knees. He didn't say that exactly, but we know that Paul had his afflictions of the body. He had the heartache that came when he was distanced from the people that he loved. We knew he knew what it was to suffer, and so he appeals to them, not through the strength that they might have in their mighty growth and appeal, but in the ways in which they are admitting their weakness, showing up vulnerably to each other, and daring to believe that day by day they are being restored through the love of Christ. But you see, there is nothing that can separate us from that love. And if we believe Paul today, it's especially the weaknesses that we have. We can point to them. Sometimes it's a little bit of a tremor in our hand. Sometimes it's our heart slowing down. Sometimes it's a weakness of the knees. We have a couple of people in the hospital today, Jerry with a broken vertebrae. We have Florence who's being evaluated, her own heart. We can sigh a deep sigh because we want to appear strong. We want to always be vibrant because we think that that is most telling of the Spirit of God in our midst. But we also know that when we admit our weaknesses, when we admit that we're having trouble with something, when we strive to come up with names because we're looking at a new way in which God is operating through our building, all of these things get a little bit complicated. They get a bit messy, and we might say, oh, we're not united because we have difference of opinion. But Paul looked at the difference of opinion that was in one of his most beloved communities, and he saw therein the strength. Can we hear from one another? Can we admit our weakness? And when we join our prayers together, indeed, our encouragement is unstoppable. It is in the togetherness and in the unity that we can share, binding our weaknesses together, that truly brings out our strength. I can't tell you what it was like, friends, on the night after Wayne had died, when many of us were gathering in the sacred garden just downstairs here. This is a practice in KC that when someone has died, we try to get the community together as soon as we can to share in the remembrance. The memorial typically comes later, but this is a time in which we acknowledge that our prayer and day by day kind of partnering with each other has borne to fruition, and we lift it unto God in resurrection. At that gathering was Wayne's grandson, Jack. This young man, now getting his graduate studies in Georgia, is a walking miracle. He's a walking miracle because he withstood all the skin grafts and the surgeries and all of the things that made it possible to recover from that devastating motorcycle accident. And when it comes to this community and the Sunrise community, he is a walking miracle because the power of Ivester love. As it comes through Wayne and Ann and rippled from us, when I saw him, it was as if our prayers had legs. It's as if the heart did not give up. It's as if the strength of our community was invested in this young man. The power of the divine and the healing and the work that Jack had to do each and every day to pay attention to what the doctors asked him to do, but also as he knew that his grandfather was sitting every Tuesday, 10:30, in the library, carrying him on heart. And that elder statesman was doing everything he possibly could in order to ensure the safekeeping and well-being of that young man. We were blessed, friends, to have Jack here. We were blessed for the years that Wayne graced us with his presence. We are blessed through each and every one of you. For you increased our prayer power and the power to come together every week, Sunday, 10 a.m., day by day, means that our weaknesses joined together are our strengths. Because we need encouragement every week. As your knees get a little more creaky and your hands a little more arthritic, and as we gray on up top, we need each other. We need the encouragement that comes together. As I was readying to share with you today, I checked my email, and there I found a note that seemed to illustrate this need of the power of prayer. And it was a deep encouragement that comes from a deep adventure that is happening. In a little bit, we're going to have an opportunity to do a community response in which we share our words of encouragement with each other. But hear now the words of Marty Downey, who is currently hiking the Appalachian Trail. And he captures the beauty of this restorative work when it comes in grueling circumstances of living outside day by day. He testifies to the power that each of us is found when we humble ourselves into the raw and real moments of the journey. Listen closely now in his love letter with all the enthusiasm of Paul and beyond as he speaks to our hearts today. Marty writes, "The love along the trail continues to abound!" Exclamation point. Time and time again, I see people helping each other, getting to know each other and doing right by each other out here on the Appalachian Trail. All of us flung together by a common dream, sharing the love of nature. So many stories, grief, loss, fear, hope, and pure determination. Young and old out here putting this crucible into their lives, most in some sort of transition between jobs, careers, relationships, and so forth. It's the kind of selfless love I see in KC all the time. It's nothing short of miraculous sometimes when I see needs met out here with surreal timeliness. We say the trail provides when this occurs, but what it means is that God provides, and miracles big and small happen when so many are praying together with such open and naked hearts. Although only half completed, it's plain to me now that the point of this journey has become bigger than introspection and atonement. This is the place of witnessing God in action, and that has fed my faith more than I could ever have dreamt. I hold the spirit of KC within me and share it with whomever I meet out here. And it's amazing how often that spirit is returned. God bless all of you KCers. Your light and love of God is alive and well. All is well with my soul. Now on to the second half. Did you hear this deep encouragement meant for your hearts, friends? On the next part of our journey together, as we would continue to emerge here in pandemic and adapt into our hybrid realities, let us consider this morning the messages of encouragement that we need to hear from one another, knowing that it's we sometimes who most need to hear it for ourselves. Take now for a moment of silent meditation, that in our day-by-day reality, we turn to the divine, and joining our hearts together might receive love and instruction for the next stages of our journey together. Let us be in silent meditation now in preparation for our community response.